I have two rules. Clean up after yourselves, and don't go near the gravestones. And what if we do? Essentially that. Fear Cabin, The Last Weekend of Summer is currently streaming on Tubi. It was written and directed by and executive produced by and stars Bryan Cranston, who plays Brad, who leads some friends into the woods, well, specifically to a cabin in the woods. Is absolutely not at all haunted. How dare you think that? It is haunted. And these friends are besieged by something. Some malevolent force. Some weird entity. Some crazy, kooky, deep-seated demonic presence that will kill anybody that stays on these grounds. That's basically it right there. This movie is listed at 79 minutes long and is 67 minutes long before they cut to some credits and some outtakes and stuff like that. And that's not really a spoiler. That's just basically a warning for you guys. And the movie actually features some halfway decent stunts that clearly are done by people being, suspended on cables and ropes and stuff like that. Nothing wrong with that. It actually leads to a few decent shots. And the movie's well shot enough. And there are a few neat little ideas. It's just unfortunate that the movie has about that much fucking material, despite the fact it's only, again, 67 minutes long. I didn't hate it. I certainly appreciated what they were trying to do. But some of this kind of reminded me of if Manos, The Hands of Fate was better shot. Because there are some moments, there are some lines that are read in this where I'm like, ooh, oh boy. Oh boy, but then again, everybody seemed like they were having fun with it, and that's all I have to say. There's not really much more to dive into except a few spoilers, so let's do that. It's on Tubi if you want to check it out. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So, I did note that they had to cover up the Bud on the Bud Light case when they were bringing that to the party. That was kind of amusing to me, but whatever. If you don't have the right to use it, you gotta make do with what you can. So these 6 friends end up going into the woods, but we open with a newsie that is just doing something like this to the camera. And then a woman that is later identified as Victoria Collins that was hung for witchcraft or demonic stuff, or maybe because she was a woman with thoughts back in the day. I mean, it's hard to really tell with history is how they treat women. Good thing women are treated equally now, right, guys? Guys? But that being said, she's one of the people haunting the grounds, and also the newsy guy that has the weird hat and stuff like that. And I know some of these characters have names. I don't care. It's nothing against any of the people to play them. I just don't care to retain the names. We have a few people that are at the cabin. We have Brad, the director. We have Cassie, who's Jennifer Barlow. And then we have Violet Sinclair, who plays Sarah. And we have David Brody Wellmaker. That is a hell of a goddamn name. That is a territorial wrestling name if I've ever heard one. That is somebody that would have gotten over huge in Texas and huge in Georgia. Probably would have won the Atlanta War right there for Ann Gunkel. Nobody that is not a wrestling fan will get that. If you are a wrestling fan and you get that, bless you guys. So, yeah, after a little bit of that, stuff and introducing our, viewers to these characters, we have a cop that basically stops him and says, hey, by the way, some weird shit's going on, so be careful. And, yeah, the newsy guy says 2 rules, clean up after yourselves and don't go near the gravestones. So put the phones in the bag is what Cassie said, and I'll put them somewhere for safekeeping. The phones get lost, by the way, just in case you didn't get that. And now we basically get very brief interactions with these characters. We get, some dream sequences, quite a few dream sequences, actually. There is one named Lizzie that has one for a bit about Victoria being hung and stuff like that. Then Brad has his own dream sequence, and really, this movie is disjointed as fuck, despite the fact that there's only 6. It's easy to figure out, but it's just disjointed with how it's presented. So, yeah, decent stunt work for what it was. And again, everybody seemed like they were having fun with it. We flash back to a woman writing in her journal. It turns out to be Victoria. She sees what looks like 2 people to love each other. And then the couple is killed or broken apart because I guess she just doesn't like seeing people happy and in love. I can identify just without the demonic stuff. And yeah, Lizzie dreamed all of this. So we are just clicking along on this glacially at times. Impressively for, again, a 67-minute long movie. And there was one point about halfway through where the character of David, who was flirting with Sarah, Viola Sinclair's character, gets a knife that goes right through him. Goes right through his chest. Now that actually wasn't too bad. There were professional shots in this and some thought put into the effects and the stunts. I will say that much. Compared to what I thought this film was going to end up being, at least there was that. There's not enough material in the movie to justify anything other than like a 25-minute short, but nevertheless. And we do see a point where Victoria's ghost is like all dipping her head around the corner and stuff like that and just dipping around. I can't do the special effects, obviously, but it was kind of funny. And then we flash back to some other settlers that were on this land. And we get Uncle Ben, who is played by Brad. Brad basically saying, well, I'll just cast... And I don't blame him, by the way. You might as well play more roles and have other people play other roles and save on whatever costs, you would originally have to, branch out with if you needed more people. Might as well use the resources you got. And then this ghost takes over and ends up causing a whole bunch of murders and stuff like that. There was one point where a woman, I believe was played by the same one that played Victoria, axed Uncle Ben in the back. And it almost seemed like the reflexes weren't quite there, but nevertheless. And a little bit earlier, there was actually a reference to there was a woman jogging along named Katie that was looking for, or they was just jogging along, got asked by somebody that they knew if they had seen Jacob. Jacob was wearing a yellow sweater. We see a shot of a yellow sweater, and then we move on from that, talk about all the stuff that I talked about, and then we see somebody looking for her little brother, Jacob. And Uncle Ben is also here. So, yeah, again, you have the newsy guy, you have Uncle Ben here. They take care of the place while the master is away. And this was all in Brad's dream. So, again, 2 long dream sequences here in a 67-minute long movie. Again, there are parts to this that work, but ultimately the movie wore me down. So... Brad ends up kind of going nuts, killing a couple people because either he's freaked out or possessed. But Cassie ends up getting sent through the window during this. And her large upper frontal protuberances happen to absorb her fall right there. That is a Gorilla Monsoon line. And then we get her killing Brad. And then she ends up she ends up basically being forced to take her own life. So everybody basically that gets on this cabin land dies. And then there was a guy that showed up and saw Logan. I believe that was the younger brother of Brad and Lizzie. And this guy called for help. The police show up. And then one of the police gets picked off by the newsy guy and whatever, because Victoria's grave seems to be the only one that anybody finds. And at one point, Uncle Ben ended up pissing on it, I believe. At least he wanted to fertilize it. And now we have a new family that is shown up. I think I found a new cabin that we could stay at. And then we go to outtakes and everything and just, what? They were only missing somebody with bad knees walking around to make it like Manos. Well... And the lack of budget, because Manos, I think, cost like 19 grand. I'm fairly certain with the stunt work and the professional shots, this movie cost more than that. Yeah, it was a long-winded title, and the movie was what it was. It wasn't particularly good. I appreciate the effort in some scenes, but yeah, not the worst thing I've seen by any stretch of the imagination. Just not great. Gets an F, put a review up on Letterboxd, check it out if you want. So, I'll check out what else everybody's involved in. I think there were enough elements that made me think, okay, maybe this guy could make other horror movies and hopefully get, more resources to bring his visions to life. Agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Redland. Until we have the last weekend of summer again, happy trails to you.